Thank you very much for joining us this morning in our panel where we talk about taking the customer journey through digital. This is Kay Campo-Lutu. I'm the founder and CEO of Hungry Workforce Consulting. We are a local consulting company based in Manila, Philippines, where we especially tackle the overall customer experience of companies in the Philippines with the objective of helping bring the optimum delight to the customer's experience. So this topic is very, very timely and very, very relatable for all of us here. I would just like to give more context as to what the discussion will be. So we know financial services are going digital, and digitization will change the way financial institutions organize themselves to relate to their customers, and it will dramatically change how customers experience financial services. These changes will be especially profound for traditionally underserved customers who are the targets of financial inclusion efforts. Today, prospective buyers might open a new account online or using a mobile device, but finish the process in a branch or on the phone with a call center representative. It is therefore crucial that banking institutions get to grips with these new parameters, as it's the quality of these journeys that sets the tone for the customer experience, the most common reason for opening and closing accounts. Ultimately, a bad experience affects your bottom line, and therefore consumers who have a very poor experience are not likely to purchase additional goods or services. On the other hand, those who have a great customer experience are 91% more likely to purchase again. As customer journeys evolve and the importance of customer experience increases, banking institutions face a unique and modern set of challenges. So that's essentially what we will be discussing about this morning. And I'd like to welcome the Director of Uno Bank and NeoFi, Mr. Puneet Gupta. Thank you for joining us. We also have the head of Retail Banking Group of RCBC, a local company, a local bank based in the Philippines. Let us welcome Ms. Lan Bendal Fernandez. Good morning. And then we also have the VP and Group
Digital Onboarding Channels.
Oh, sorry about that. Yes, okay. Head of Digital Onboarding Channels. I got the wrong information. Apologies for that. Okay, and then next we have the VP and Group Head of Trust and Investment Center of Philippine Business Bank. Welcome to Mr. Angelo Miguel Calabio. Thank you for joining us. And
morning. Pleasure to be here.
Yeah, last but not the least, we have the Senior Managing Director for Financial Services of Cloudera, Mr. Joe Rodriguez. All right. So let me start the conversation now. I would like to get the first question to Ms. Lan Fernandez of RCBC. The question being, what impact has COVID-19 had on customers' digital behavior of what they now expect of banks? What's your perspective on that?
So how will the new digital banks improve customer experience for customers across Southeast Asia? So I think for the past years, banks in Southeast Asia, even here in the Philippines, have realized the value of customer experience. For so many years, we were focused on setting up customer service, addressing the needs of the customers after they avail the products, right? But customer service is focused on it's more on a reactive way to support and address the complaints or inquiries of the clients. This is a go-to unit for post-product support of our customers, while customer experience is a proactive way, designing the customer journey, thinking of possible risks, failures, loopholes, limitation, or frustration of customers in the future. So to avoid that, we need to put value and investment on customer experience today. So CX or customer experience should be improved as a self-service channel, minimizing human intervention or dependency on banks or on the business, so we can focus on acquiring new business, quality accounts, and delightful customer experience. So I am inspired how electronic companies like Samsung or Apple, how they design their products. When you purchase a Samsung or Apple unit, everything that you would need is there, right? So I'm just seeing three areas. When you receive the product, you will see the product manual, right? So user is guided by the product manual. So I noticed this time it's no longer a thick booklet or product manual. It's just a straight to the point manual. So the user can refer to that easily. Number two, it has a warranty, right? So it warrants you that its functionalities are working properly, and it will cover you. The manufacturer covers you that whatever's the promise in that in that manual should be expected. So the only time that the customer will go to the store if the product is not functioning well. So it gives you warranty. Number three, it gives you guarantee. So it gives you the assurance that it was carefully produced, it was tested, and it met all the standards, including the safety. But of course, it gives you the promises that it will work according to how it was defined. So that is how CX should be designed. Okay, number one, it should be user friendly. Number two, it should be responsive. Next, it should be adaptive, and it should be designed with less human intervention. So for banks, the only transaction that you cannot outsource to technology is relationship. And from relationship, it creates clients' loyalty. And then if you can provide a better CX or customer experience, and that will keep our customer. Like right now, during this pandemic, um, in our case, we're able to provide the platform for digital onboarding. Okay, providing the platform or channels for our customers to apply for an account online without going to the branch. So from digital onboarding to their day-to-day transactions and making our bank as part of their lifestyle. So when you value the customers, then they will also value your business.
Okay, great. Thank you for that, Lan. I know you've shared, I mean, we are users of RCBC. And yes, I know that there is that digital component. Although sometimes, there's still that manual intervention that you need to, speak to the branch or to the retail officer and whatnot. And I wanted to get the perspective also of Philippine Business Bank through Jello as to, in terms of this pandemic, this new normal, how has the behavior of your customers, especially those who would like to get some trust funds, right? How did the pandemic affect that kind of behavior or that use of that product? Was there any change in terms of the customer experience and some touch points that have been made digital in the process?
All right. There's actually a number of elements in that particular question, in terms of the behavior of the customers, of course. Because of the situation, they've really been forced in a way to go use their mobile phones, their computers, the internet, really, to be able to access not just certain information, but more importantly, their financial information. And as Ms. Lan already touched upon at length during her discussion, it's really about the experience. And perhaps what I could add in terms of in the context of investments, especially on the retail side, is that the financial services is really a journey on the part of the client, from onboarding. On our part, as trusted investments, we are part of deepening the relationships with the clients. So, when you get their deposits, we have a good number of first-time investors, really. But what the pandemic changed, perhaps, is really clients right now has really been more informed. We've noticed this trend, perhaps because they had a good amount of time really to read the marketing materials, the fund information, the fact sheets. We've seen a spike in the number of queries, questions on clients in terms of product features. and services. So on our part, as an asset management firm, it's really about understanding the evolving needs of the client, especially in this digital space currently. It's really fast paced, and what perhaps the good thing that it has caused is really the clients are now spoiled for choice because banks, both local and foreign players, have really been forced to step up their game because if you are not ahead of the curve or at least at par with your competition, you will be left behind. And because of the digital environment, scaling up the business has been quite easy because you could capture a good number of new clients. And it's really evolving and tailor fitting your services currently. But just to put everything into perspective and proper context, perhaps we should also pump the brakes a little in a way because although in asset management, for example, there's been the introduction of, let's say, robo advisors in advanced economies. But for traditional economies like the Philippines, there is still value to the human side of things. We can't remove that immediately, the behavior of the clients in terms of the appetite of the clients for an all-out digital experience. It's improving. It's improved rapidly, actually. But there's still value to the brick and mortar branches, for example, and the actual human relationship managers. So perhaps right now it's all about striking a balance on the part of the financial institutions.
Yeah, it's interesting that you mentioned that, Zello, because in an earlier, panel where I was also a participant, we spoke about, the different segments, the different generations, and how these generations have a certain appetite on which particular services from a bank, for example. So, a digital native, a Gen Z individual, maybe because of the nature of him being a digital native, may have more appetite in consuming digital services as compared to, let's say, a baby boomer, who may not be as tech savvy and may prefer a human interaction, actually. So I agree. It's very common in the Philippines to see those different segments of the market with their preferred kind of service. And in fact, this discussion in terms of bringing that customer experience to the digital space, right? Given that movements are still somehow limited, face-to-face interaction are still being replaced by online, technologies. I want to get the perspective of Puneet here, and I know Puneet has 80, 80 patents to your name, and I want to get your perspective as far as the entire digital world globally, and your perspective on how can banks truly satisfy all customer needs online. First of all, is that even possible? And second of all, how do we even get these people, these different segments, to adapt?
Yeah, it's a very right question and something that we grapple with every day and every night. I think in my mind, the right question to ask is perhaps not really about online versus human touch. The real question is really about how does bank as an institution serve the customer's need, and understanding what the customer's anxieties, moments of truths are, their needs are, how are they placed. For example, the situation today is very different from situation that will be there in a normal circumstances. There is obviously a forced reality where you expect to do more and more things online, and therefore banks need to be just prepared for it. Similarly, what is happening is banks are not the only institutions who are digitally engaging. The entire expectation landscape of consumers is changing. When I deal with a Google experience, an Apple experience, a Facebook experience, an e-commerce experience, whole lot of different experiences, my expectations as to what does it mean to have the right digital engagement has changed. And you don't need a super informed and educated consumer. Every consumer who is experiencing the best in breed digital interactions has consciously or subconsciously defined what really good customer engagement and digital engagement is. And unfortunately, banking industry, financial industry is significantly lacking as far as the overall digital interaction landscape is concerned. So I think the right thing that the banks need to ask, the financial institutions need to ask, who are my customers? Like you just mentioned, what are the key personas? What really defines their priorities? And then figure out, am I digitally structuring myself and presenting myself in a way that I can get the job done for her? That I think is very important. Today, in vast majority, I'm not talking about everybody, but in vast majority, financial institutions are like transaction sinks. You need to do financial transactions, and I'm available to get that done for you. I think that mindset has to give way to, I'm here to solve or help in real life problems to my customers. And when I do that, automatically the right strategy will emerge. And I think when you start looking at problems with that mindset, it will automatically figure out where do you need to increase self-service and online, and where do you need to increase human touch, etc. So I think the first question has to be understanding your customers right and serving her right. And when you do that, you will figure out that you will identify the right balance. But suffice to say, there is a lot more that banks need to do today in terms of how online and digital can be used to effectively serve. The balance needs to be maintained. Nobody should argue that human touch is not required, but I think we sometimes overdo that. There is still sufficient gap in terms of the effectiveness of the online channel. Once you fix it and we get into the right cultural mindset of serving your customers, then the balance will automatically arrive.
Amazing perspective, Puneet. I love it. I love when you mentioned that persona is truly important. Understanding the different customer personas that a bank is serving, and really going through the nitty gritty of these customer touch points that they may encounter right along the way. And then taking a step back, understanding how your services can be tailor fit to them or customized even, right? And so in effect, we're actually getting to this space of curated or personalized service actually, because if I bank, the banking services I access may not be the same as what a digital native or a baby boomer may have access to. In fact, right, especially in terms of the products and services that the bank may provide. And this is where how data is really important in terms of capturing that insight. I remember that my son, he's 21 years old and he's banking in one of the major banks in the Philippines. And I just want to share that what he did last month was he took his money and put it in an investment fund, right? But what happened was the bank actually closed the deposit account without realizing that he actually only moved the fund to another product of the same bank. So, that is how important, being, how important the data is to the bank. So they understand really the kind of customer that you are, and with that give you the appropriate customer experience. And I want to give this question to Juliet actually, in terms of personalization from a regional perspective in Southeast Asia. What are your thoughts in terms of how data is improving in the understanding of customer, individual customer, within the region, Southeast Asia in particular?
All right. So I think this question is interesting. I mean, data, we believe that it can be used, right, to compose the experience around the customer. And just now, I think you mentioned that data can assist everyone, right, to simplify, modernize, or automate customer satisfactions, and also to optimize the efficiency, accuracy, and customer satisfaction as well. So I think the question here is the personalizations. It's impossible without a good data. So probably with that, I would like to look into two specific segments when I define the data, right? So first, I would like to look at the static data, and second is the behavioral data. So let me start, like static data, what it means, right? Like name, your age, date of birth, contact details. those things actually give us a basic profile of a customer. They are young, they are in Singapore, they're in Philippines, they have money in the bank, they have a low credit card balance, but it doesn't really tell us much. Like certainly doesn't tell you that enough information to basically predict what they are going to do next. A more personalized customer experience needs to define with what we call it the next thing, the behavioral data, right? On the other hand, actually this gives more insight. How we define this behavioral data, I think this is a consistently growing and aggregating every time your customer actually engage with you. I think, let me give an example, right? So let's say that we have two customers, John and Peter. Their credit card balance today is $100 in a bank. They are both 30 years old and they live in Singapore. Based on this static data, actually they look identical, exactly the same, right? But let's look at the behavioral data. That's where I think I want to drill down a little bit more. Like let's say every month that John spent about $2,000 in the credit card groceries, like eating out, coffee, whiskey, or anything, right? And then he pays the balance on this credit card every month. Then same thing happened next month, and then he has a mortgage as well, and then he actually pay the mortgage every month to reduce his loan debt. And every month, actually, John exhibit the same behavior. All right, then I think let's look at Peter. On the other hand, Peter has like $5,000 months of debt for the past 6 months, and then he has been paying a minimum payment, accruing the interest compared to the John he paid a full one, and then the balance is $100 today. Maybe he just made a big payment to the bank, and then, or he just got any promotions, So all these things is actually from the example, we can thus tell the behavior data tells about, we may presume that Peter, actually the second customer, come into a new behavior of saving money, or he is now more financial compatible, to commit on a long-term financial. So I think using this behavioral data, the bank can begin to send a relevant outbound communications to be personalized to Peter and to John, right? This probably relates to the home loan that they are needed, both of them, as asking for that. And following from my previous points, right, we know the bank have not just two customers, Peter and John. This example can be multiplied by thousands, like that data can be then used to predict what customer may do based on the aggregated data of the similar behaviors. So these things normally, when I go down into the data analysis and then doing more trendings with my customer, when I'm analyzing all these sorts of the behavioral data, we can actually see like some patterns. Like for example, in the example that I'm giving out, is a significant credit card payment in the last 3 months actually may reveal around 43% of them will then apply for a house loan. So now we are actually leveraging all this data and decide what is to do next. And as if like we are catching them, it's more proactively, right? I think at the early discussions, Gran also mentions that we want to basically give more proactive things to the customer, as if like we are catching them at the moment from the data that we have. So this is a simple as questions, a simple example, but I believe that good data will enable the banks to compose the experience around the customer, and then before even they realize that they have the needs. So this is, I think, what I want to share with you.
Right. Thank you for that, Juliet. I think yes, data definitely is very important to capture, right? To be captured, because consumers like ourselves, we have engagement, right? With our banks for sure every day, right? But it's a function of capturing the data, so then the banks, have that capability to kind of personalize or curate the product or the service that will be offered to you. So I want to ask both our local Philippine banks here, LAN of RCBC and Jello of PBB, up to what degree or the capability your bank has in terms of personalizing the product or the service of your customers, right? First of all, is that capability present already? Or second, is it something in the roadmap, or is it something that is readily available already to the customers? Lan, maybe you want to go ahead.
Okay, thank you. RCBC is already investing on data science technology, studying the behavior of our customers. And we realized that it's important that we know the life stage of our customers. Okay, so it's important that we segmentize the right market, the appropriate market. So before it's just like a generic approach, but right now we need to understand the needs of our customers based on their life stage, right? Especially the millennials or the Gen Z. We need to prepare for them. Um, in that age or generation, there is a need already to invest or to be stable in finances. Um, this is the generation where they look for home loans, car loans. They invest on, well, they plan for their family, marriage, education, insurances. And this is also the formative years for them to prepare for long-term plans. So yeah, we have this technology already based on geographic data, where they are located, what are their industry, and also the behavior based on their transactions. So yeah, we are already prepared for that.
Perfect, perfect. I mean, as a customer, I look forward to hearing from RCBC on these personalized services. What about your Philippine Business Bank, Jello? Any comments in terms of personalization, curation of services available to your customers?
Yeah, well, again, just to add on some of the points already brought about by the body. The past decade has really been characterized by one word in terms of financial services, at least here in the Philippines, and I believe in the broader Southeast Asian market. It's really been transformation. Um, so there's been major investment on the part of all banks. I would say I'm confident in saying that in terms of really um, transforming the way that they do business with their clients, no, and improving their clients' experiences. As much as possible, what we're trying to do is really to to complement first, perhaps, our existing services through technology. And a part of investor education is also trying to transition most of our clients towards digital transactions. Um, and in the context of an asset manager or an asset management firm like ours, it really boils down to having the right product suite as well. The product lineup is very important because the products needs to be accessible in the online channels. And in terms of personalization, it's really a long drawn out process, perhaps, but we're getting there. There's been a lot of positive steps, but another aspect and angle that I also want to bring about to the body is also the regulatory framework that we are operating upon. Of course, we do want transformation as much as possible. We want our clients to embrace the digital channels, but at the same time, we're also working and collaborating actively with our regulators, which is of course the Bangko Sentral ng Pilipinas, in having the regulatory framework in place and also continuously improving the regulatory framework for it to be cognizant to all the new trends in terms of financial products and services. Of course, at the same time that the digital banking experience is really changing on a daily basis, we also want to ensure that the client's interests are protected. Consumer protection is, of course, paramount to our thinking as well. So again, on the part of Philippine Business Bank, as part of the management team, I would say that uh, there's been a lot of investment made, and there will still be a lot more investments and exciting times for our clients in the near future. So I hope, I think I speak for the whole local banking institutions. We are catching up rapidly with our foreign counterparts, not just here in the Philippines, but also we have a roadmap in place trying to take advantage of the ASEAN integration, for example. Of course, the pandemic slowed down some of those efforts, but we believe that in the next few months, opportunities will start to come out in the open as well, and the local banks will be ready to compete.
Thank you for that, Jello. You shared very, very great insights, especially on the side of the regulatory, of course. Banks here in the Philippines cannot move, without approval of our regulatory agency, definitely, right? So it really takes two to tango to ensure that banks actually give, the best possible customer experience. And I know we've been discussing how important personalization is, and it's great to see that banks in the Philippines have been continuously investing. But in a country of 100+ million people, the level or the extent of personalizing the services, it's a gigantic task, right? I could just imagine what happens at the back end, especially on the data and the analytics that would have to be in place, right? To give our product managers, our product creators, the best insights possible. And that's why I want to ask Punit, your perspective on, what would you advise or how would you advise the bank, as far as creating a hyper personalized strategy, right? For the customers or for the consumers who require different services, different products based on, like what Lam said, based on the life stages they are in. It sounds a gigantic effort that has to be done.
Yeah, you're right. Absolutely, it is no trivial objective, but an objective worth putting all your energies behind. No doubt about it. I think the way one needs to look at it, I think uh, any financial organization need to look at it from two or three dimensions. There is an element of cultural transformation, which is about how you think, what products you conceive, how do you market, etc. How do you innovate? And then there is a very strong technological part of it. Doing this, if you want to be like Google, if you want to behave like Google, your underlying technology infrastructure must be structured like that. Everything today you are doing in Google, every time you're doing something, it's getting more personalized than it was yesterday because of the power of underlying data and analytics, with all care that you can take about privacy, information security, etc. So that's important. There are regulatory dimensions. They are critical to handle, and they can all be handled. But keeping that issue apart, I think it's very critical that you have an underlying architecture where every transaction that a user does makes you that much more aware about how your next action should be. So, like I said, first is this cultural dimension, that you need to sort of stop thinking about I'm providing a deposit product, I'm providing a lending product, and I'm providing a credit card or a payment. I am solving a problem related to how do I save money. I am solving a problem with respect to how do I increase, how do I sort of make more. I am solving the problem of how do I plan for education for my kids. My kid is 10 years old today, and I know the next 10, 12 years would require important spending milestones. So am I sort of solving problem for this? That requires a cultural thinking where you got to think beyond deposits and loans. Obviously these are the fundamental functions, but the way you structure the product, for example, when you when you have a banking relationship with somebody, that somebody may have that banking relationship or account just for herself, or that somebody may represent the financial needs of an entire family. And if that is a financial need for an entire family, the way, even if it is a simple product like deposit, the way the product needs to be designed when it is a representative of the entire financial need of a family versus of an individual needs to be different. So first is this opening of mind and desire to sort of think about product proposition. The second part that I said is core technology architecture. And you cannot, and I'm sure my co-panelists here would agree, all banks across the globe, it's not just with Philippines. Anybody who has been in the business, forget about 30 years, in the business for 10 years, is dealing with significant legacy. And these systems were built for getting the transactions done. User does something, the record gets made, and then it keeps going on. The new modern architecture requires a very very sort of flexible middle layer orchestration core. Everything user does in the front and all the functionality that happens on the back, in between, there is this orchestration that is happening, and it is this orchestration that describes how those same 4 or 5 products are presented to the end user in form of a different experience. And unless I think banks upgrade their infrastructure, in many cases, my advice is you may have to get out of this modernization game because it never ends, and think of creating an entire fresh stack from top to bottom. But unless you have the code, there is a data analytics component where this is being stored, and then you are understanding and then figuring out what you are trying to do. This is not going to happen. So to summarize, I think a cultural reset where you say you are here to solve problems in the lives of my consumers and not just lend or keep deposits. And second is sort of upgrading or redefining your core architecture that is a very strong middle orchestration kind of architecture, which allows you to sort of monitor and respond to it.
Again, I love your insights, Punit. It's first of all, the culture transformation piece. Definitely, it resonates very well, especially for a market like the Philippines. Even in our engagements, CEOs in particular are very particular about the culture of their organization, because strategy is one thing really, but if your people are not adopting, right, culturally and behaviorally, right, it's a wasted effort. That's why there's a lot of work being done, not just by the CEO, but also together with the HR executives, in terms of coming up with intervention programs to make sure that the organization is very much aligned. Now, second to your point is the modernization program that really never ends, right? It doesn't really end. And the fact that your suggestion on modernizing or using looking into your core technology architecture is something that the banks continually do so here in the Philippines, and I suppose also from an Avaya perspective in the region, right? And having said that, from a technology perspective, I wanted to get the perspective of Juliet in terms of where the AI comes into this picture, because as and when we continuously engage the banks for their services, and the data being transmitted, God knows, all over the place. At some point, artificial intelligence will be able to consume so much data that it will be, more intelligent than the human, right? I know you wanted to show something, Julia, so perhaps we can show that clip as an initial precursor to this conversation.
Sure.
I've been experimenting a lot with Avaya and Google's contact center AI offering. Now, what I want to see is, what does it actually look like when you take it out into the real world? And there's a lot of variables.
Calling Google test. Welcome to Avaya Airlines. Thanks for calling, Dustin. It looks like you have a flight departing Sydney to Melbourne on the 1st of April 2020. Are you calling about this flight?
No, I'm not.
Sorry, I won't be able to put you through to an agent straight away. Just to let you know, I am a voice assistant like Google Home and Siri, so you can talk to me in full sentences. How can I assist you today?
I'm missing points.
Okay. Was your frequent flyer member number added to your bookings before your flight?
No, it wasn't.
Okay then, that's not a problem. But don't worry, we will lodge a missing points claim. What is your frequent flyer member number?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9.
Which airport did you depart?
Sydney.
And which airport did your flight arrive at?
Melbourne.
Okay, so that frequent flyer member number was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and you departed Sydney, arriving at Melbourne?
Yes, that's correct.
Great. I'll send that off to be processed now. It will take up to...
Wow, that was an amazing clip. I'm not sure if I will feel scared or I will be excited about the future. Well, if there's one good thing that that clip showed us is that men can actually multitask, right? How about that? No, but okay, Juliet, I wanted to get your perspective out of that clip, which is very interesting. I mean, do you think this, capability on AI will actually be a replacement, or in terms of human touch, right, for customer experience?
When I see these questions, right, it seems like a versus. You see, like there's a word of AI versus human. I feel it's like it's very competitive. But when you look at that video, right, we look at AI and human, it should be a complementary, right? So I think to what extent can AI be used to humanize the human touch? In the video, as you've seen, it was done real life, right? While Dustin is driving, and then you notice the conversation is very natural as he's talking to the live persons, and even pause a little bit, and then the on the other side, the AI, which is the robot, or you call it like a virtual agent, is actually answering in a very natural way. I think that is what we call it like the pace of the innovation has come into a point that to simulate the human touch, right, in this customer service area. I think I've heard many people say that, for example, voice was dead, right? And when we move to the digital platform, but I believe voice is back in the sense that we are using it more. So in the one extent itself is that think about like just now the example, or think about how today we are even using Siri on the phones to ask us like find me on nearest restaurants, or I'm even ask Siri to actually read news for me, right? So even our kids sometimes get more answers from those devices compared with us. I believe that we have all the devices, technologies that already in place for us to basically starting something or talk about the AI to simulate the human touch. And we are, without realization, we are actually using it today. So to me is that how far you can go, actually as far as we want. But I think the underlying questions here is the underlying answers that we have to basically asking ourselves is that understanding the data. And again, right, I think back to the previous bring it as well, is like we need to actually understand our persona, our customers, and also going back to the financial world. Just now we talked about the local banks. They are probably in Philippines, and they are banks, they are bonds to be digital banks. But other banks that probably in the regions, right, especially in Southeast Asia, in the countries like Indonesia, in the countries like Malaysia, we have actually a lot of banks that are reside outside the, like CBD, or outside the cities that are really 4G area and so forth. So this kind of situations, we see that AI automations is unlikely to be much assistance to them, right? As a result, I think we bring up by the Angelo, I think it's a strike a balance to this, right? It's very important. It's never too early or too late to begin the adopting AI. I know that what fascinating about AI itself is that it's really, you can treat it like a human, but it needs an ongoing learning, right? Ongoing learning and training to operate it better and keep up to the change that we have every day. So I've seen actually many banks stuck when they say that they are doing some AI adoptions, or even some of the very legacy banks are very skeptical or where we should start. So many excellence effort, right? I think like Punit mentioned about cultural and infrastructure, all these things has to be balanced in between that. And some people are trying to invest in the right technology, but during implementations, we found out the people and the process, right, is often falling behind. That's where I think he mentions a very good point, is that the modernizations, the people, the HR, even you mentioned about it, all these things has to be in place. And then when we start to align what your customer needs, and then we start to see what our internal people, how our people and process can basically align with that. And yeah, so to answer this, to conclude that you can go as far as you want, to extend what you want, because the technology actually today allows that. It's just that the key points we have to balance is that align with what our customers really need. And then you don't adopt and then make sure that don't just install and forget it, but we need to basically apply the strategy, the ongoing process to basically keep it alive and move forward. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you for that, Juliet. Yes, I know it's both, encouraging to see what the future will look like, or what we have right now already. But at the same time, it can also be concerning, right? Because of this data being captured by AI technology, and what else can they do? One will wonder what else can they do with that information, and that's why I wanted to ask Puneet again, on your perspective as a technologist in terms of AI. I know there's always a way to kind of criminalize the technology, but as an advisor, right, to companies, for example, how will you kind of caution or kind of use this technology judiciously or cautiously, just so it doesn't get to the point that it becomes really a liability more than an asset?
Yeah, absolutely. I think the pragmatic way to look at it is to look at it as a broad AI strategy and a series of very micro AI strategies. When you're looking at micro AI strategies around specific problems, these concerns that you just articulated, they tend to be less severe because you
Mm.
are looking at AI as a way to automate, make decision making better for specific problems, and that sort of that is not associated with as many sort of overarching risks about AI taking over the world and stuff like that. So first important thing is to figure out what are the areas where automation or better decision making can serve. Customer acquisition, for example, is a great example. You all want to sort of optimize or speed up how you can acquire customers far faster, make the eKYC process, how you, when you're doing marketing campaigns, how you are targeting, retargeting customers. Those are, I think, dimensions where AI fits very well. You don't need to focus on micro. Credit decisioning, great opportunities. All these economies, almost all economies in the ASEAN region, Philippines being a great example, there is so much of under penetration of credit. And if you look at the standard sort of bureau mechanisms to do this, a very small part of the segment is being constantly targeted and retargeted for loans, whereas there's a large segment which can do well with these lending. Now, traditional rules will not work, but if I can use AI models to sort of expand my reach, it's something that we must just go ahead and do. The whole process of monitoring, collections, figuring out relationship strategy. Where is it that you believe a customer may leave because the customer has been unhappy? Like the example that you gave, your son sort of moved something from A to B because the bank doesn't know. The bank or an algorithm inside the bank is not sort of trying to understand the user and figure. Finally, when you're servicing, the video example that you said, there are instances where you want to quickly get the job done, and getting the job done quickly is more important than speaking to the person. Or there are behaviors. For example, I am most awake from 12 o'clock to 1 a.m. in midnight, and that's when I'm most energetic and trying to solve problems. If I want to fix something now at that time, it may not be very practical to have a sort of right human on the other side to do it, but I can do it. So I know your question was broader about how do we strike the balance, but by giving all these examples, what I'm trying to say is there are those micro opportunities, processes where you have to improve, and the two measures are automate and decide more intelligently. And wherever these two elements are high, you should just go ahead and use it and not worry. Obviously, the fundamental architectural dimensions related to data privacy, security, etc., needs to be taken care. Now, when we go beyond this, and then we figure out that we are sort of at the heart of a bank, that's where eventually you got to become like more Google and say, I have an algorithm which is understanding Puneet better. Everything Puneet does, the algorithm is becoming better. That's an area where a lot of grays and shades of grays can begin to appear as to what you can do with that information. And that's where you need to define the right strategy as to what information will you use, what are the decisions you will take, what information would you share. For example, we are doing in what we are doing a lot of projects where if we have to make some credit decisions and we don't know the customer better, but the customer has been doing a lot of transactions on e-commerce side, we want to sort of figure out new ways to give them buy now, pay later kind of propositions. And we are using AI models to sort of fetch this information. Now, what we are proactively taking care, and what I advise everybody to proactively take care, is that you need to sort of take care of privacy. You need to build these invisible models where rather than these models running within my bank and for which I have to get all the data and one can have an issue about what else I can do with this data, my algorithms can move to the e-commerce site and have the e-commerce site run the algorithm on their data without me ever knowing any transaction data about what the user is, but passing me the fundamental insight about what kind of consumer he or she is and what's their average spend pattern so that I can decide what kind of loan things will be better. So in conclusion, number one, I would say, I think we are far away from the situation where the evil, so-called evil of AI may begin to emerge. And therefore, I would not overthink it. But at the same time, you should not underthink it as well. So the right strategy is break it down into micro process areas which are hungry for automation and intelligent decision making. Go ahead and do it. And for broader personalization, figure out the right architectural and privacy principles in the way data is shared and data is used, and focus on more dynamic micro persona building and hence ABC, rather than sort of storing a lot of specific data about a user which may fall under risk if that information were to be compromised, or if an institution were to use it wrongly.
Thank you for that, Puneet. My takeaway from what you shared is really breaking it up to micro processes. I think that's very critical. Given the so many processes and workflows, that a bank may have, digital onboarding, trust products. I could imagine the very lengthy workflow or algorithm processes, and it's great that you suggested and recommended breaking it down to micro processes, taking a step back to assess which of these micro processes can benefit from automation. I think really that's a great starting point, especially for banks who are investing in technologies already to automate. We are coming to the last stage in our panel, and I wanted to give the floor to each one of you. Share a message or two as far as we spoke about taking the customer journey to digital, right? It's not really like, is it digital or human, or it could be a hybrid of both. I want to get your key messages to our audience here, as far as from your perspective, from a bank, as a technologist, as a technology provider. What is your thoughts on taking customer journeys to digital, and do you see still the presence of manual interventions, human touch along the way, and what lies ahead in the future as far as your organization is concerned? So maybe Lan, you can start.
Okay. I think this pandemic, or the COVID-19, is one of the challenger. I mean, every bank or every industry was caught unprepared for this pandemic. But it actually fast-tracked the digitization process, or even those customers, especially here in the Philippines. We are heavy users of online platform like the social media, but not on online banking. So I noticed that a lot of the traditional customers were diverted to use the digital banking. So I still believe that we need humans. Technology will just complement the human interaction. We can outsource the technology transactions, the onboarding, but not on addressing the emotions or the needs of the customers. So we better prepare for how we're going to address the needs per generation. But we cannot just focus on millennial segment, but also for our the high valued customers or the high net worth individuals. But right now, we can't force them to go to the bricks and mortars. We need to use the digital technology to serve our requirements. And yes, it's a combination of human touch and technology. And what we can do is deepen the relationship with our customers, addressing their needs, and continue to provide better solutions or boost their experience with the banks. And actually, a lot of industries, especially the SMEs, the small and medium enterprises, they realized that technology is needed during these challenging times, this pandemic. So customer experience is a big thing. It should be the big investment of every industry. And it's important, no, that we will not only outsource it to technology, but you know, as customers, I'm putting myself in the perspective of the customer. Aside from putting my investment or my money in the bank, or aside from the security that it can give us, of course, I need also someone who can help me to to invest on how to secure my future. Um, so we should be the right partner, or the ones who can provide the needs of our customers. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you for that, Lan. Jello, any parting words from you?
Yeah. So just to add, no, actually, I wanted to use the name of our asset management group, no, Trust, as part of our parting message. No. Well, this digital, the digital age and the digitization trend, no, is not something to go away in the future. In fact, it's I think it's a well-known fact for everyone that it will stay, and it will continue to evolve, not just in the near future, but for the long term. And the needs of our clients will continue to evolve with it as well. So there's also a responsibility on our part, being the financial institution of the country, to make our clients trust the process, in a way. Of course, it will also take time for them to trust the systems, to trust the new platforms that are in place. Like, for example, are their information safe? Will it be kept confidential, and so on and so forth. So security, from their part, would be very, very important, and it is our responsibility from our end to ensure that the investing public and the broader general public would trust the digital process. And lastly, just also touching upon the need for transforming within the organization. Um, the Philippine economy could needs to evolve and really perhaps embrace our integration to the broader global space a lot more. There's been major improvement, and props to a lot of the pioneers in the local industry, as most institutions have really embraced the digital age right now. But there's still some form of silo mentality, I would say. Um, but again, the pandemic offered us the opportunity. It gave us a glimpse of the worst case. Perhaps not the Black Swan event gave us a glimpse of the worst case, and really emphasize. I think it couldn't be emphasized more than what happened during the past few months. It's still continuing currently, but the thing is, the institutions have adapted, businesses have adapted, the general public has adapted, and I believe that from this point forward, the banking industry here in the Philippines will be very much proactive when it comes to dealing with this process, both from the regulators' point of view, or the internal stakeholders, and the general population. So these types of events, we thank you for the invitation. It's also an opportunity for us to reach a bigger audience, not just our client base, but also making contact with their peers in the industry. So from Philippine Business Bank, we really thank you for this opportunity.
Thank you for that, Jello, and we're very happy to have you here. I know you mentioned silo mentality. That's present here. Yes, I agree. I also lived in Singapore for a couple of years, and I really saw the difference in terms of the banking experience. But of course, the banking industry in the Philippines is continuously transforming. We could see that as users, and that's why I want to now pivot to Juliet and hear from you your parting words in terms of bringing customer journey to digital, and how can Philippine banks benefit from what Avaya can offer, for example.
I think I need to come conclude from the customer experience, right? We all talk about this. I mean, from the start on all the points is focusing is actually the customer itself, right? I think nowadays they expect everything. It's like what they want today may not be the same what they want yesterday, nor the same day what they want tomorrow. So I think as a result, we observe a lot of things, right? So when it comes to the customers, I mean, a lot of banks are shared by Van and also by Angelo that all these kind of things are keep changing. So back to all the previous points that we've spoken about, what I recommend my client is that really use best of those data, right? Those data are the very important assets that we have, right? Defining the patterns, we talk about it like during the cultural, or we even use the prescriptive analytics, right? We try to see how we can make things happen. So and come to kind of like a conclusion is that consider it's like a life cycle. So think about what to be automated. I believe that we should be looking on all those kind of the inquiries, starting with the high volumes. We broke down into the like what Puneet mentioned, the micro AI become the strategy with the high volume, maybe low value interactions, and we deflect those interactions to be self-service, the best step. And then we get the right people to basically focus on those automations tool, right? And the other side component is that we talk about the high value interaction. All this type of valuation actually needs the high touch of the thing of people and personal touch, right? So those things probably we look at the perspective of getting the right persona, getting our right people to basically serve this high touch customer, high value customer, and we do interceptions evolve before they ask it. So the strategy that I want to mention here is that to conclude is to deflect what we feel is a low value or high volume interaction, and we intercept right from the bottom is that high value customers with the more personal touch, and then to get the right personnel to basically get all this on hand. So to get the balance on it is that make sure the total experience strategy in place, right? So your channels are interlinked, and your consumer is also can navigate from one channel to another channel effortlessly and also seamlessly. I think this is a few points that I think very important for us today. And thanks for the invitations. We are glad that Avaya, we have all the sets of the technologies that we can really offer for helping our customers. And indeed, yeah, it's too little to say in these sessions because yeah, we just have a limited times, but feel very happy. We have our booth actually to basically, if you're interested to know what are the technologies that apply for the automations and things like that in the session itself. Thank you so much for the invitations. Thanks.
Hey, I just
Thank you
like to
very
add,
much. Yes, Lam.
yeah, thank you for the opportunity for inviting us and to represent also our bank. And we're so happy to be here. And we good news for our clients also that we already have this digital onboarding or online account opening channel for them. They don't need to go to the branches, so they can enjoy the comfort of their homes or offices, and not only the digital banking transactions that they can do, but it's an end-to-end full customer experience journey that we have designed for them. So thank you for this opportunity.
Thank you,
Yeah.
Lan. I will tell my kids to try that service, and let's see how they will take that up.
Thank
But
you.
okay, yeah, thank you, Juliet, as well. Thank you for your insights. Of course, last but not the least, I want to turn it over to Puneet for his another great perspective, customer journey, bringing it to digital, balance of both worlds, micro processes. Off to you, Puneet.
Yeah. So thank you very much. I think great conversation. I would summarize 3 or 4 points that I would want the audience to sort of go away with. I think the first and foremost, I think the need of the day is for a flip to take place. I think for way too long, banks have been at the center of the entire financial equation, and that end consumers come to bank to get their job done. I think there has to be desire, and many forward-looking banks are thinking like that, but a lot more needs to be done where the user truly needs to move to the center. and banks need to surround themselves as one of many participants in a digital ecosystem which sort of serving that change or shift in the center of gravity, I think, is important. It seems like a generic statement to be made, but every time I discuss about this, or internally when we are looking at launching Uno Bank in Philippines and thinking about it, this is something that is very critical. We got to move away from the center of gravity and let the consumer in. And we are one of many institutes institutions who will serve that. That's point number one. Point number two, central to doing this job is understanding your consumer better, and that needs to be a very systematic effort. You need to start with a hypothesis, and hypothesis can come with respect to the audience you're targeting, 4, 5, 6 different personas that you sort of design your service around. But your whole strategy should be that my bank, using all the data that is getting generated, is sort of creating more and more dynamic micro personas which are being developed as you go. So you may start with those 4, 5, or 6 personas, but over a period of time, your system should have the ability to create 50 micro personas on its own, eventually to a situation where we get into an n equal to 1, a micro personalization where you can understand each user for what she is. That's second part. And once you do that, personalization and everything comes in. Third important message, I think you need to embrace this model of user journeys, from core business products to user journeys around your products like saving, deposits, etc., to life journeys which go beyond the obvious deposit and lending. My education life journey, my entertainment or holiday life journey, my health life journey, these are all journeys that banks can make an impact on. It cannot be just a marketing theme. It has to be central to how products are identified. And finally, I think it's about sort of truly behaving like a startup, is to believe that you are always in an MVP kind of stage. You have what you have, but you know very well that as given the speed at which this whole landscape is evolving, your consumers will demand more. New fintech competition is coming, and they are becoming dominant when it comes to transactions. Somebody comes, intermediary comes, and they are becoming dominant when it comes to insurance. So you must architect your architectural core in such a way that your ability to modify product or new propositions or launch new products can be a matter of a few weeks than 6 months and year that it today takes. Today, if you download an app from an app store, at every midnight it may just be updating itself and you don't even know, because there are versions that are changing. That's not how banks work, and you need to truly work like a first grade digital asset where modification, changes, and responses to what is happening at the same pace that a Facebook or a Google or an Apple is doing. So great opportunity in front of all of us, but it's important to understand, realize that however uh, well our sort of positive thoughts and intentions have been, banks and financial institutions, we have been far behind in terms of what we need to do. We need to change our space to 2x, 3x, 5x for it to work, and that requires some very fundamental questions and fundamental actions to be taken. And if taken, I think the banking industry is ready for the next $1 trillion opportunity that the global economy is presenting us. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Puneet. Yes, I picked up the life journey, which I would kind of align with what Lance said on life stages, right? So it's kind of really working hand in hand. So thank you very much for joining our session today. Great insights from all of you. I turn it over, or we're finishing now. And thank you very much for your participation, and have a great day ahead.